Hi, my name is Haley Contine. I am currently teaching here at Prosper High School. I work with our senior English students in On-Level English 4 as well as our college prep English class. And today in my formal observation that you will be seeing here in just a few minutes, you will see me kind of stepping in kind of an impromptu way. So for some context, on our campus we have our guiding leadership team, our GLT. I was a founding member of that 3 years ago as a second year teacher, which I'm very proud of that I was welcomed into that team very young and very new to the profession. But I'm a founding member. I served my 3 year term, which is your max on our campus. And within this GLT, what we do are midday professional development sessions, meaning we identify problems. It's very much PASL geared, truly. We identify problems on campus, and then we as a GLT split up into teams of 2 or 3, and we take on the session during our conference period, whatever conference period we have joint shared. And then that way, our professional development is happening midday. We aren't having to stay after school or come before school. Teachers go to their conference period, their off period. It's about 45 minutes every time. They get some kind of learning based on their preference. So A and B day will be presenting on something different so they can choose a session that best matches their needs. And then we come back together as a GLT and analyze our data and decide kind of where to go next. Now, like I said, I am done with my time on GLT. However, we recently had a staffing change emergency, and it left one of our new members of GLT without a partner. And she'd never presented by herself or presented at all before. So I was asked as an Emeritus member if I would work with her and kind of serve as her mentor. She's also kind of on a familiar trajectory. She's on the same trajectory as I am. Young teacher, ready to move into administration. She's about a year behind me. So I took on this sort of mentorship role for her and presented alongside of her. So in this meeting, you will hear her speak more than I do, truly. However, I am still leading professional development on an identified problem of mine that I actually left GLT with last year. So this is based on my data, in that we do not use tier 1 instruction or just behavior to the level that we should on campus. So this learning is going to be all about do we have those tier 1 opportunities available? Are students coming to class with a routine? Are they adhering to our campus initiatives? Are they following our, we use this acronym SHIP. We are the flagship school in our district. We are Prosper High School. So we have our SHIP acronym, which stands for Support, Honor, Commitments, Inspire, and Protect. So are we incorporating those into our class? Our materials easily accessible, all the things that make up tier 1 instruction, and making our students feel safe, comfortable, and able to succeed in our classrooms. So I'm really proud of this professional development. It's a very interesting situation, seeing as I came up with this data. I collected the data on my own last year with a team, and then this year I've graduated out of GLT. The GLT took my data, is creating information, teaching, learning, things of that nature on it. And then they are teaching it out, obviously, and now I get to rejoin this information and kind of get to teach it as well. Now, like I said, I'm speaking less than my counterpart Madison, seeing as she was the team member. I'm just kind of filling in out of need, but I felt that in a leadership perspective, being able to do so and being asked as the only one by my administration, I do want this still to be something that is highlighted, that I was able to do that. I got this presentation last night. Granted, I know the information, but I just got what we were going to be presenting on last night, had about 10 hours to use it or look at it before we presented this morning at 8:50. So quick turnaround. Now my last note on this is that now that I've graduated out of GLT, my role as the collaborative team coordinator kind of comes into play, because my job now is to go from presenting, essentially, again, by happenstance, that's not like a normal thing for me anymore, but I'm going to go from presenting to, I'll go to our CTMs starting next week and see, are we using our professional development in our CTMs? Are we actively planning for tier 1? Are we actively planning to use the learning matrix. Are we actively doing these things? And if not, I take that data back. I will provide it to GLT through my administration and make sure that that is something that is getting implemented. So yeah, that is what you have to look forward to. Now, as far as competency goes, I'm sorry this is going so long. I am focused predominantly on competencies 5 and 9 in this regard. Again, this is very impromptu. This came up yesterday or 2 days ago. But I am focusing on professional development. Now, again, I did derive this data with a team with my GLT last year. It wasn't the only one. But I am taking data that was given and found and derived and turning it into professional development and giving that to a team of teachers. Additionally, our school vision has to do with our SHIP acronym. Are we supporting? Are we honoring our commitments? Are we doing all the things that we have vowed to do as a campus? So those are the two things and areas that I am looking to mesh in this PD. And then last, as far as things that I want my supervisor to look at or give some feedback on, would be how I appear differently from my first formal observation in my CTM to my role as a presenter on a larger format. You'll only be able to see about 4 teachers in the presentation just because of where my camera was angled. However, there were about 30 people present, and I feel that I have a different persona when I'm speaking larger scale. I feel much more confident in myself at times when I get to provide professional development and when I am the expert on something and when I get to teach something. It's why I love my job as a teacher so much. But I would love to know what that appearance is, and if it is truly different, how I could maybe take my strengths of presenting on a larger scale back to my CTM. I also, again, I'm not speaking near as much as my counterpart, still very much leading a meeting. I still designed this learning with her. But yeah, just so you have some context on that, I don't want anyone to think that I just took this girl's presentation and I'm turning it in for my own. But that would be what I'm asking you to take into consideration. So thank you. I hope you are able to hear everything. I hope you're able to enjoy. That's that. Thank you so much.
First up on what I need you to do for us today is I need you to take a second and reflect on a time or a lesson or a unit that you really feel like things went well for you. I'm going to consider that smooth sailing. Like the kids were engaged, discourse was happening, all things were fabulous. And then I also want you to think of the other side of that scale where maybe things didn't quite go so well and it's a little bit of a shipwreck. On your handouts at the center of your table, you're going to write both of these experiences in the smooth sailing and the shipwreck box. You can tell me, you can write the story, you can draw pictures, you can just use a buzzword that maybe sums up that lesson, whatever floats your boat, floats your boat. That's ironic, and I said this.
I love a pun. It's so good.
One for everybody.
See, this is where you need gold confetti. Right there.
And I'm going to come around with these little cards. Just hold on to them. Sorry, can I record that? That's all right. That was aggressive. Try to walk it.
Just throwing it at people.
Do y'all want these? Or you want to go to the different groups? Okay. You get to be S. You get to be I. Yes.
Do we need another minute? Okay, talk about it in your groups. Trauma bond with your friends and talk about how maybe your lesson went really great and you're really proud of it, or maybe how it didn't go so well. And some of the things that I want you to talk about is how did your own consistency or your own follow through affect the lesson? Prior to starting your lesson, were your own expectations clearly reinforced with your students? Did you repeat your expectations prior to misbehavior happening? What part of your lesson setup or routine seemed to make the biggest impact on what went down that day? And what could you have prevented the rough moment before it started? So you talk about that with your people at your tables.
I think that I do a lot of my students. Yeah, some things, and, gives them independence. And also any lesson on kids to get excited to take it.
Yesterday stuff. Well, class, but he's a huge took it off of one team I'm good. Checks out. It's just like checks out.
Take one more minute to finish up your thoughts.
I'm gonna type it on the show.
I already started.
Did you see me exit?
We're bringing our story to a close, then.
She just shared that last one.
I should the original, but then the other one.
Alrighty. At the bottom of the screen, I put it up there, be prepared to share, so in case you're the anxious type and you're like, don't pick me, somebody at your group is going to be selected to tell your story. So just prepare for that. But first I'll leave with a story so that you're more comfortable sharing your own shipwreck. Every year in floral design, we do the time-honored tradition of the cookie color wheels. And Lindy's probably laughing because she knows where this is going. And the kids love it. How could this lesson possibly go wrong? It's cookies, you get 12 cookies, you get a glob of icing, and all the primary colors, and food dye. Great, it's a good day, the kids enjoy it. Usually just sticky hands is the worst part that happens. Easy peasy. Until this year. I've got two different sides of the spectrum here of what really happens. It's usually a table of boys that get the glob of icing and the food coloring and they dump the bottles in and then it just turns brown really fast and we have to restart. And then it's typically a table of girls and they take their time with it. The colors are all very pastel. They beautifully ice all their cookies. It's great, works out fine. This year I was walking around my room and I had a student ask me, Miss Owens, how do I make red orange? We had to stop and pause on how we create red orange. I felt like it was one of those things just like, well, red and orange, what's it called? What colors do you think goes in red orange? So we had to stop and pause for that and talk about it. And then after I finished this conversation with the student, I look up and then there's a male student looking at me, looking at me with blue food dye on his face and up his face and on his hair and splotches of it all over him. And I asked him what the heck happened. And then in this moment I realized that there's another boy also looking at me in the same stance on the other side of my classroom, equally covered in food dye, if not worse. And when I look at them, not like 3 seconds later did they start with, well, he did it, going back and forth about what happened. And in this moment, I really take in the scenario of my classroom. Not only is there blue food dye over both of these children, my floors, my wall, like splattered up the wall, in my buckets, in my sinks, all over poor bystander children that has nothing to do with this altercation. And how that ended isn't important in today's story. How I could have corrected this prior to it happening, there's two things I can think of that I should have done. A, and from this point forward, I will start this lesson with, we do not put food dye on our friends or humans in this classroom. And I'm going to reiterate that. I didn't feel like it was necessary because we are in high school, but apparently it is. And then I'm also going to remove the food dye from the situation once they add it to the icing. What I feel like happened is there was a little bit of downtime. They might have pissed each other off just a little bit, and then they might have grabbed the food dye bottle and thrown it at each other. What that was solving, I'm still unsure, but I'm going to remove the food dye from the situation moving forward. Does that make you feel better, Michelle, sharing your horror story? I hope it does, because it was a nightmare for me, and let me help save the day. With that being said, I don't recommend doing this in your classroom. I do it in mine. It brings me a lot of joy. How we pick people who speak at our table groups is we select sacrifices. So everybody very quickly point at somebody at your table. Point, pick your sacrifice. Pick your sacrifice. I don't know. Pick your sacrifice. Okay, that poor soul is going to be the person to share. It could be their own horror story. It could be even the positive story if they really want to flex on us and tell us how great they are as an educator. And it can also be the funny story of somebody else at their table if that person's comfy with them sharing. I'm starting with that far table. Tell me your story.
This was last year in our Lifetime Fitness class. So we were doing an exercise in the top of the arena, and so basically what we had designed was in each corner of the arena, the kids in the class were going to have a different type of activity they were going to have to do. Push-ups, sit-up, different kind of things. And then in between, they were going to have to jog from place to place. So it was a certain amount of things at each corner they had to do. And then once they got to the next place, they would do the next thing. It was for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Theory, fine, sounds not bad. But with the 30 to 40 kids we had in there, didn't really think about how that space and how they monitor everyone to make sure they were doing everything they needed to do. Obviously, there's some people in Lifetime Fitness that love it, and there's some that would rather just play basketball every day, and so it's hard to keep track of those kind of kids that will try and get out of that activity. So what turned out happening was, obviously, some people were doing it like they were supposed to, and then the other ones, it was kind of difficult in that amount of space to try and monitor the way we needed to. So the amount of things that some people are doing and the others, and then also with that amount of space, obviously over time, people are gonna do exercises quicker or slower depending on their fitness capabilities. So it became really hard to track, okay, how many times has this person gone around and done the things they're supposed to, so it turned into a little bit of chaos.
Cool. So how would you have prevented that from becoming chaos before it did?
Could have done that on the gym floor with same idea, but easier to monitor and less time for people to get that far, ahead of others or behind. So the spacing wasn't planned very well.
Sick. Middle table.
Well, I didn't write down a story, all I wrote was Unit 1. But basically what my team and I discovered with Unit 1 is that it starts with difficult concepts at the beginning of the year. And I think that one thing we could do to prepare for that is maybe, for Algebra 2, maybe have the kids do some Algebra 1 for the first week to get them warmed up to it, and maybe, structure things a little bit different.
Yeah. Sick. Last table. Last sacrifice.
We talked about, my shipwreck is every other Friday in social skills when we play games. We're still working on figuring out a way to make that work, but every other Friday, there's some sort of altercation.
I bet there is.
Just all the different personalities.
Yeah.
You have one that's almost nonverbal, one that can't stop talking, and it's always a surprise.
Well, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to be kept posted on how you do find your solution to that shipwreck. Okay, all students at the Prospero High School are our students, and Mr. Trujillo brought up a great point at the beginning of the school year that really stuck with me, and Mr. Friedley hit it home yesterday when I discussed all this with him yesterday. Today's learning is about the behavior matrix and breaking that down and what that looks like for you as an educator in your classroom. And Prospero High School is obviously a large building, and we're all in different corners of the building doing different things, teaching different programs and reaching different kids, right? But the neat thing about the behavior matrix is that it has this cool capability, and it creates this framework to reach everybody all at once. And what Ms. Trujillo said at the beginning of the school year is, we've always been awesome. Us being awesome isn't a new thing. It's not, this magical creation that we've decided to be awesome over the summer. Our students haven't just magically decided to start being the best kids in the nation, right? Our staff members and my coworkers haven't decided to start being the best coworkers and teachers in the nation starting this summer, right? No, we've been doing these things, but the cool thing about the behavior matrix is now it puts words to it. It puts these, what feels like simple letters, SHIP, and now it has a meaning to us, the staff here at Prosper High School, as well as our students. And I think that that's really cool, and we're gonna be diving into that with our learning today. Who are we?
Hi, I haven't said anything yet. I'm here though. My name is Haley Conti, for those of you that don't know me. I teach English, English 4 in our CCMAR students, and I'm over our English department this year. I put a little shameless thing that I'm just kind of popping in to support Miss Owens today, who's amazing. I mean, is she not like just the best to listen to already? But I did my time on GLT. I'm really excited to pop back in and get to support her today. This is my 5th year at PHS.
I'm Madison Owens. I'm one of the ag science teachers here at Prosper High School, one of the FFA advisors. There's 4 of us in total. If you have any of our FFA members, I hope they're super awesome for you. If not, now you have a point of contact if they are not super awesome humans. This is my 4th year here at Prosper High School and Prosper ISD, and my 1st year on the GLT. Purpose of today's learning. We're gonna hit these 3 points, but in a little bit deeper detail, but I'm just gonna read the board to you because I can. We're going to align classroom expectations to the school-wide RTI framework. We're going to teach and reinforce behaviors like academic skills. I think that this is a really neat point because oftentimes when teachers think about teaching subjects, whether you're a math teacher, English teacher, XYZ teacher, you know that repetition is how we best get concepts into our students' minds, right? Like if they continue to hear these things, they're going to continue to improve on them and grasp these concepts, right? Well, behavior is the same way. Oftentimes, teachers believe that, well, I told them one time and I expect them to do it. Yes, we teach high school and yes, they're young adults, but at the same time, they're also kids. So I think that's a common misconception that if I told them one time I expect them to do that, that's not always the case. So just like with our academic skills, we have to reinforce behaviors and reinforcing those things with the students and confirming with them that, hey, like this was a good thing and I enjoyed that you did that today. And we're also going to talk about setup procedures and routines that reduce disruptions in your classrooms, in your own spaces and programs.
Okay, so real quick, if you guys are like me, you go to PD and it'll say like, this is all about tier 1 or all about RTI, and you're sitting there like, I know I should know what that means. And here I am 5 years in and I can't really ask anyone. So just a quick, like if you were in that position. When we say tier 1, we're talking about those universal expectations that support our students. So this is you having a bell ringer every day. This is your materials are kept in the same place. This is that consistency that Ms. Owens was just talking about that creates that clarity, creates the routine. Kids know what to expect when they arrive to your room. They aren't jostled by something brand new every day. It's consistent, it's easy, and thus it makes it a lot more comfortable for our students to show up and be successful. Okay, now why we focus on this, it's going to help us ultimately to prevent big issues, altercations, escalation, because kids know exactly what to expect from our routines and they know what to expect from us as well. Just by building a routine, students are able to gauge what's important to you as a teacher, and then they're able to kind of balance that with you. It's going to build that trust, build some consistency, and it's going to hopefully get us to a point in all of our classes where we're focused more on consistency, more on our actual class, our actual routine, our actual content, and not disciplining the things that randomly come up, those things that escalate, maybe a game situation every other Friday, right? It's building that level of trust, giving them a routine, something to rely on each day.
One of our first stops in our voyage today, got that?
Yeah.
Create classroom expectations using our core values to create. I'm going to really deep dive into co-creating these expectations with your students in the next slide, so I'm going to come back to that one. Using guiding prompts in verbal and visual formats. The cool thing about the SHIP is that you're not being asked to add in this brand new, social contract in your classroom starting tomorrow. You can implement parts of the SHIP into your day-to-day life and your day-to-day conversations with your students at any point. It could be super casual. You could just drop in the word support in a conversation with students, and using that same that same language that we want the students to start using. You can also just pop up the SHIP visual, the graphic in your classroom. It could be as simple as that. And then making sure that you're connecting these core values and making it work for you in your different programs. The SHIP gives us this framework. I mentioned that earlier, where it gives us the baseline of, okay, we're supporting, we're honoring our commitments, we're inspiring, and we're protecting. But it's you and your students that bring these things to life. It's you and your programs that really put these words into action. And that's what we're gonna really talk about today when we're looking at how we're gonna actually make that happen. From compliance to collaboration, there's a lot of research on the importance of allowing your students to feel like they have a voice in your classroom and how that positively impacts their learning. When students enter your classroom and they feel like they are respected and they feel like they are safe, they're immediately going to be better learners. So what I did is I took this research and then I summed it up into 3 points for you. You're welcome. Increases student ownership and buy-in. What this looks like is when students help define what the SHIP looks like in action, they begin to see those expectations of their own. It's no longer Mr. Hio over the intercom telling the kids what we're gonna do. And it's no longer you standing at the front of your classroom with these expectations. The kids now have the opportunity to create their own meaning and their own explanations to these things. The coolest way that I see this in action is when we go on FFA field trips. It's a student-led organization, and you'll hear us say it 150 times every time we all get together. But the neatest thing is when we're about to get off the bus, and one of our older officers, Mr. Aiden Calloway, if any of you have the honor of knowing that individual, he stands at the front of the bus, and he gathers the attention of everybody. All the screaming, hooting and hollering freshmen in the back of the bus doing God knows what. And he gets their attention, and he says, "We are the Prosper FFA, and when you get off this bus, you will proudly represent us and our teachers in every possible way." And he goes on this whole spill about how when our students leave the bus, and they might not be standing right next to one of their ag teachers, but the expectation is that they're always going to represent us in the best way possible. This does two things. A, it creates student ownership, because now this is a student telling these other students, this is the expectations and you're going to rise to meet them. And it's just a really neat opportunity for the students just to hear that from another kid. It's no longer the teacher. It creates that shift from authority to relationship driven. It is no longer, like I've said before, the teacher doing these things. You're gonna promote shared language and understanding. I had a really great conversation, again, with Mr. Friedley. I talked to him a lot, about the meaning of respect and what respect means to different people. And in this conversation, I was like, well, in my house, respect looked like this. And he was like, well, that's great, but you don't know what respect looks like in that student's house or that other individual's house. And that really stopped me in my tracks for a little bit there. I was like, wait a minute, you're right. So the cool thing about the SHIP is, and allowing the students to have their student input on the SHIP, is it allows them to create their own meanings and share their meanings to these words. So the word support can mean one thing to one kid and something else to somebody else. So by allowing them to have their own buy-in and their own voice with these things, it allows them to create their thoughts and connect their thoughts to have their own meaning. And then last but not least, and honestly maybe the most important, is having the opportunity to strengthen that teacher-student relationship where the students feel safe and respected in your classroom, and that when they go in there, they know that their voice matters. And yeah, that's that. You should know what it means, but if you don't, we're gonna learn together. What does S mean?
Support.
What does H mean?
Honor, commitment,
I.
inspire.
P. Okay. Note to self, work on timers for future presentations. Okay, on the back of your card, whatever letter you got, I want you to tell me what that looks like, feels like, and sounds like in your classroom. So what does support look like in your classroom? What does honor and commitment feel like in your classroom? What does inspire feel like in your classroom? You're writing that on the back of your little card. finishing up, the goal with this particular activity is we're taking these words, support, honor commitments, inspire, and protect, and we're adding real meaning and definition of these otherwise abstract terms. So then that way, whenever we're working with our students on these things, we can also help them take these, again, abstract terms and help them develop these meanings to them. Now time for your favorite part of every professional development where you have to get up and go do things and talk to other people. I'm sorry, but you're welcome. I changed my word. I gave up.
Aggressive.
Okay, you're going to walk to your different poster around the room. Again, if you got S, you're going to the support poster. Support's hiding up here. You just can't see it. Where's P?
Behind you.
Oh.
Nice.
You are going to go and talk to the people at your different posters, and you're going to create guiding questions that you can use to help kind of like probe these thoughts with your students. So if you want them to tell you what support looks like in your classroom, you're going to be asking your student, how can you help a classmate better understand this task? Or if you have protect and you want to make sure that your students feel safe and respectful, you're going to phrase the question, what can you do to make sure everyone feels safe during this activity? So basically what you're doing is you're walking to the posters and you're writing questions to help pry these things, to help pry these meanings out of your students. Does that make sense? I hope so. Then the lack of nodding, I'm assuming it's a yes. Thank you. Rise and grind, gamers, go. These are real things that I say to my students, by the way. You're welcome.
Sorry. I'm gonna stand still.
That is like Rise and grind gamers who actually sometimes.
Yo.
Forward.
I'm just giving you T-minus 2 minutes so I can make sure I respect your time and get you out of here.
No, I was gonna say, I feel like inspire is kind of like coincides a lot with motivation. It coincides a lot with motivation. Motivation is kind of one of those indecipherable things that if you knew how to do it, everyone would do it. It would be easy. But inspiration is what it looks like. It's easier to maybe state than how to get people
1 minute.
to be inspirational.
Can I say how my points? Okay, I just try to think. So I do things, I work with inspiration as students in that class, for example. They answer questions, and I'm like, it's like really to me, because I'm like, oh, you have this, you're brave, you're doing this, and inspires me, and actually kids like, this question, so I'm thinking, because you're brave enough to try to answer such or ask, yeah. But I mean, I know, always, one from right, you know, there's more, there's silence, that's right. And like, are you really anything like it's
Like 30 seconds.
That's some help with this, like, I'm gonna show her what I'm working on. That's kind of how I in this, and that, you're right, like, it is hard too, like, how do I, okay, is that person, because I go back to my
Okay, your regularly scheduled torture is complete.
I don't know if I shake somebody else and I feel like I'm excited.
Everybody do me a favor, select another sacrifice. That's it.
There's so many factors that go into
Select your sacrifice and read your question. At least just one. I think everybody only got one, so let's do one. First sacrifice.
What can you do to make sure the rules are being followed?
What can you do to make sure your rules are being followed? What about inspire? Oh, push the button. Come back. Oh, yeah. Support. Just kidding. Support still writing. Honor and commitments. Go. Hit it, Fergie.
How do you hold your classmates accountable?
Sick. How can you hold your classmates accountable? Support.
I will go with the soccer environment. How can you help that's it. Sometimes a lower order thinking question is better depending on where you're at, especially if you're in a high action, so you don't collapse thinking about it, just to perform and support.
That's valid. I love the application of soccer. Valid. Inspire, hit it. I'm so sorry.
Oh, how can you lead the other, your peers?
Yeah, how can you be a leader? Love it. All right, easy. Thanks. You're welcome. It was short and sweet. I'm sorry.
I know.
So yesterday, again, when I was talking to Mr. Friedley, he asked me, he's like, okay, this is all great, but like, combine it together. Like, make it make sense. And that threw me through a loop. That put me in an existential crisis, where I sat there for a solid like 10, 15 minutes, and I was like, oh dear God, I don't know. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, they're gonna look at me like, lady, we're over 9 weeks in, and you're telling us that you want us to implement this in our day-to-day lives? Yes, I am telling you these things, but what I'm not asking you, and what your admin team isn't asking you to do, is get up tomorrow and completely switch it and go make a social contact with your kids. If you want to do that, great, by all means, pop off, sister, do that. So this isn't about changing everything and starting completely over. This is about fine-tuning and enhancing and finding just little ways to implement the SHIP and the behavior matrix into the little things that you're doing with your kids. The core values give us a shared language to enhance learning for our students in every corner of every program and every part of our building here. So I did take some time to come up with some ways that you could implement these things in your classrooms, in your programs, just in your day-to-day conversations with the kids. So yes, if you want to create a social contract, if you're not familiar with what that is, you sit down with your kids and you're like, okay guys, what are the baseline expectations? What are our, what's it called at the start of our meetings? I can't think what they're called. Norms? Our norms. What are our classroom norms? Redirecting conversation starters. You can just pop in some of these words that are included in our behavior matrix, like how could you better support a classmate instead of doing it for them? Are we honoring our commitments today by doing said choice? Visual supports. We have a really sick mural just down the hallway right there, where the kids walk past it every day and they see these expectations. You can pop it on your door. You can add it in your Google Classroom. You can add it in whatever way that you would like to. Even in your email responses to your kids. I love the way that you inspired one of your group mates today. Referencing SHIP language and transitions. Let's say you're doing an activity and it's just really, you can see that it's starting to take that turn and the kids are getting too loud. It might be immediately after lunch. You can say, all right guys, let's protect our learning today by making a better choice by doing X, Y, Z. And then also Minga points. Minga does all the hard work for you. It does all the heavy lifting. There's just quick little buttons you can hit and say, Joe Bob supported today. Great. And now parents of Joe Bob know that he's supported today. So really lean on that Minga thing. The cool thing is that the kids are already using our language and using the behavior matrix language in the things that they're doing. They're excited about getting points. They're excited about getting praise. They're talking about getting praise with their friends. And they're talking about it with their parents. So these things that we're doing here, it's trickling out into the world. And it's really neat, and the hard work's already done. And the best part is that we're only 9 weeks in. So by just adding these little things into the things that you do with your classmates, it's super great, super awesome. We're gonna run out of time, because I'm a yapper.
Real quick. This kind of stuff, this is the nice part where we get to reinforce the fact that y'all are already doing this, right? And now we get to put our learning and what we're doing as a class or a campus initiative and just apply it to these really great behaviors and activities and structures that you guys already have in place. And it might just give you at least some insight into, well, maybe I'll add this one new thing too, but it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Now we said earlier that we're gonna kind of combine tier 1, so those structures, those routines, those norms, I like that use of word, and combine that with this matrix, right? Using the SHIP and working that into our classroom tier 1, because what Ms. T has kind of set up for us is this campus-wide tier 1, right? Where we're reflecting on the SHIP and we're using that matrix, and now we want to bring it a little bit smaller scale and make it work for us, right? Like Ms. Owens was saying, we're not saying like reinvent the wheel, we're not saying start something brand new that you're not already doing, but rather taking something that has been modeled really, really awesome for us and make it fit for you and your kids, right? So a way that this kind of starts, or where this starts, it's so basic, and that's why I say y'all are already doing this, right? So pat yourselves on the back. is by setting up your classroom in a way that is feasible and accessible and comfortable and structured for your kids. Now, I don't mean like you have mood lighting, and I don't mean like you have a comfy couch and a rug, and I'm just picturing my classroom and how it's like a little dungeon right now. This is when your students walk in the room, they know what their next step is. I know for me personally, a lot of times I give my kids that first few minutes to grab their materials, sit and chat with each other. I realize I teach seniors, I realize you are 18 and you have things that you need to get off your precious little hearts right now, so take a few minutes. For Miss Owens, that might look like you come in, you read the board, you see the bell ringer, you get started right away. Whatever it is, as long as it is predictable, right? Now, it doesn't have to be every single day. There are days where my kids walk in and I'm like, you gotta go, like we have stuff to do. But for the most part, if you can create that environment that is predictable and not something so jarring for your kids so they know what to expect. Are your materials accessible? Do they know what materials they need, right? I know I'm guilty of forgetting something that they might need and then having to be like, really quick, like scramble to go get that one really specific thing off the shelf, and it derails your transition, right? So can you preemptively get them prepared with what they need? And do they know, if I need to go to the restroom, this is what I do. If I need to run to the counselor, this is when I can ask. Do they know when they should have their computers? Do they know that they're gonna need them at all that day? So any way that you can preemptively prompt them for what that day of learning is gonna look like is gonna keep your transition smoother, it's gonna give you more class time to actually get to content, but it's gonna build that relationship, right, that level of trust. Okay, so we have some really great examples. When I said my room looks like a dungeon, this is what I mean, right? Like it quite literally is like a hole in the wall. But we have some really great examples of what your classroom or what some teachers' classrooms look like when students arrive on that day. Now we have Miss Owens' really cool slide up at the front where she's got her little family time, right? It must be important to Miss Owens to build that community space, right? I know that just upon arrival because I see that that's front and center, right? I know looking at Miss Swanson's slides down here, exactly what we're gonna be doing that day. I know what objectives we're gonna try and get to. I know what TEKS we're working towards. Shameless plug, if you're not breaking down TEKS with your students, 10 out of 10 recommend, because they're gonna see that and instantly know, like, oh, I'm gonna be doing this today, right? On the right-hand side, you see what's actually up in my classroom right now, obviously with a little different date. Every day my kids come in, they see the agenda. I have seniors, so I feel like I have the luxury sometimes if they see they're gonna be in their journals, they know to grab their journal off the cart. They have some resources, things that they will need to accomplish those agenda items, some dates coming up, and then our essential questions. So any way that you can create that consistency. They come in, they look at the board, they look at you, they're still gonna say, what are we doing today? Because they're 15, 16, 17 years old. But at least there's that level of trust. There's that community. They know what's important to you. They know what's important to that class period, and they know what to expect. Awesome. So then we have how you set up your space, right? Now I wish I was near as organized as our CTE fam here on the left-hand side. We have Miss Swanson who just labeled the heck out of everything. I don't know if you guys can see this. She has every material, she has everything organized. Like that's, I wanna hire her, like come do my pantry or something like that, right? She keeps things organized. That's gonna eliminate the like, no, I said you need XYZ, but you grabbed XYZ. They know exactly what to get, right? They know exactly where to find their things. Ms. Owens was talking earlier about visual supports, right? And including actual images and visuals and text and graphics and things so that once again, it's easier for your kids to get to the learning, right? At the end of the day, all of this is to streamline getting to your content, right? And creating that community behind it. Do we have containers? Do we have a space? I have this little, it's like a janky little cart, but I have a cart at the front of the room, right? They know when they walk in, they grab their journal off the cart, they grab whatever materials are there. It's front and center. They know right away that that's what they're gonna be using that day. Awesome. And then we referenced our like giant, amazing ship mural that's out in the hallway right now. Why I love that so much, I'm gonna go on like a little tangent for a moment. Why I love that so much is we talked earlier this year in our summer PE about not just telling kids what they did wrong, not just telling them like, I said to grab a paper clip and you grabbed a stapler, your kid's doing that, sorry. But rather than coming down on them or condemning them, you did that wrong, right? Why don't we just teach them how to do it right? And why don't we give them supports to do it, right? So like I said, when Ms. T set up this like campus-wide tier 1, this is what I mean, right? Like she's telling them and we're telling them and doing so in our classrooms, this is how you're successful, right? This is what we're looking for. Don't make them hunt for your expectations, and don't just come down on them when they don't meet them because you didn't teach them. We've all probably had a lesson before where they turn something in and you're like, why they all messed this up? And you have to think like, oh, I didn't teach them that thing, right? Or I forgot that, or I skipped that, right? Don't just focus on when they don't hit your expectations. Teach them how to, and then praise them when they do.
To be respectful of your time, we are running very short, so I'm gonna speed this one up. Every minute counts. Use every minute of every day, all the 90 minutes that we have, and we are blessed to be in the presence of all of our children. Just make sure that you recognize that every minute counts. Predictable routines, like Ms. Conti just spoke on, is very important, and it reduces that anxiety and confusion and allows your students to come in and lock in. And clear pacing keeps students engaged and focused. When the kids know what's going on and they know what's happening next, the kids are not going to, they shouldn't veer off that path. And then downtime invites off-task behavior and structure prevents it. Throw back to the blue food dye. I imagine that those kids had way too much downtime in between mixing up their icing and they decided to get mad at each other. So just preventing that downtime, and if you are super speedy and super awesome and you ran out of things to do that day, figure it out and find something else for them to do, because otherwise you're inviting the opportunity for behaviors to come into your classroom that you might not be super excited about. And then also every transition is an opportunity to reinforce your expectations, just like how I spoke on earlier. Using the vocabulary from the behavior matrix and implementing it into your transitions is a super awesome opportunity for you to reinforce your expectations. Skipping that, if you want it. I'm so sorry. Takeaways! These are not new ideas that we are implementing. We've been awesome here at the ship. We know this. You're awesome. You know that. If you don't wake up every day and say, I'm awesome, you should be, because you are. Number one, we talked about how co-creation builds ownership. We talked about how environment drives engagement, and we kind of talked about it. Every minute has meaning, and make sure that you're implementing every powerful moment in your classroom, because every minute counts. And last but not least, go Eagles. And if you need to get in touch with both myself and Ms. Conti, by all means. Plug.
I'm gonna give a quick plug to myself and Scott Nichols. We serve as our collaborative team coordinators on campus, and we love to be used. What that can look like for y'all is if there is a team that you are really wanting to go and see, teams that are successful, in which case we can also help you determine who to go and see. We have some great teams on campus, but if you wanna go see those teams, if it's during one of Scott or I's off periods, we can come and watch your class so that you can head to their CTM and kind of get some strategies, see what's going on in those rooms. So please let us know, reach out to me at my email, my extension, all the things. Scott Nichols is also my counterpart in that regard. So just let us know if there's any way that we can help you in seeing some CTMs.
Thank you. I'm sorry, whatever time. Have a great day. Make your choices, be good humans, and don't do drugs.